Good thing you have insurance. The lady in front of you just called that Bernstein.
Enough said. Call Ed at Bernstein.com.
Now, here's Ed Bernstein.
Early voting has started October 20th, so get out there and vote. And with me to talk about how important voting is going to be is Susie Lee, candidate for Congressional District 3, and a little bit later on the show, Jim Gibson, who is running for County Commission. Well, I know that you have spent a lifetime working on education. And I mean, in every component, before school, after school, during school, and my law firm, by the way, sponsors the Lunt Elementary School, and we partner with them. It's an at-risk school, and we have a lot of these at-risk schools, right? I mean, what can we do about some of that? I mean, education is primarily funded by the state, you know. So, in Congress, what can you really do about it?
First of all, we have over 200 schools where over 75% of the students are on free and reduced lunch, which is the federal indicator of poverty. Over 67% of the students in the Clark County School District are on free and reduced lunch.
And let me stop for a second, because I know, because I've been to these schools.
Right.
These kids don't eat. When school is not in session, these kids don't eat. And it's not because their parents aren't trying or working. I mean, sometimes they're living in cars and getting them to school.
And several families, affordable housing has become a major issue in our valley. Several, you know, a lot of times we'll have students who are living with a couple families in a few rooms. They're not getting to bed because there's people up at night. They have like a small corner. So we go in with, you know, my program that I've been the board chair of Communities and Schools has been a partner with many of these schools. In fact, in Clark County, we put site coordinators in about 43 schools that help students with these daily barriers, whether it's food, medical care, eye care, dental care, you know, basically bringing the services to the student at the school site, coordinating with other providers here. We're partners with 3 Square, with Eye Care for Kids, Positively Kids, Future Smiles. Those are all partners with us, and we sort of, you know, we're the traffic cop. We help the schools, help the teachers who are under so much pressure as it is, not being paid enough, and now they have to become social workers. So Communities and Schools works with the principals, the administration to help these students overcome these barriers. And we need to do more of that if we're going to overcome the poverty issue we have in our schools.
It's a lot different than the way you and I grew up. You growing up in Ohio, I grew up in Pennsylvania, product of public schools. You never had to worry about, you know, the food. You didn't have to worry about the education. You didn't have to worry about being safe.
Right.
How do we keep kids safe in schools anymore?
I know. You know, safety's a big issue too. A lot of these kids, even walking to and from school, is a safety issue. And you think about the stress that students have to go through or are going through on their way to and from school. I mean, we have obviously a safety issue in our schools, and you know, whatever we can do. I don't believe that we need to arm teachers. I'm not for that. I think teachers have enough pressure. Becoming a sharpshooter is not one of the job descriptions I think teachers should have.
Not why somebody became a teacher, right?
Right.
Yeah. And of course, when you talk about coming and going, you know, something that's been in the news raising its ugly head again is the Yucca Mountain thing. Because they're thinking about taking all this nation's nuclear waste and shipping it by truck, basically, into an area. How far is Yucca Mountain? 90 miles. Less than 100 miles from Nevada. Look, I'm in the accident business. I mean, it will happen.
Right. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You know, this is a clear point where I am at opposite ends of my opponent, Danny Tarkanian. I mean, he is supportive of turning Yucca Mountain into a reprocessing facility, which I think is the silliest idea I've heard of in a long time. First of all, let's just talk about the transportation. Nuclear waste, high-level nuclear waste, will be on roads and railways across 44 states. There will be 10 to 11 million people each day in the radiation shield from the shipment of these, with daily exposure to radiation, first of all. Secondly, this Union Pacific Railroad right behind the Strip is where a lot of this waste is going to pass through Las Vegas. Not only is it a health risk for our state and our citizens, it's a risk to our economic engine. It's as you know, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when there will be an accident. And if you're a planner of a convention sitting in Nebraska trying to make a decision, do I go to Las Vegas or do I go to Orlando? Well, I really don't want to be near that nuclear waste that's going to be on the railway in Las Vegas. I think I'll take my business to Orlando. That's what that's going to mean. And guess what? It's going to affect our state budget. It's going to affect our schools. And we're going to see an effect up and down our economy if that happens.
Not only that, it's another subject for potential terrorism.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Yep.
how difficult it would be to hijack some trucks and...
Right. And listen, if the Department of Energy gets Yucca Mountain on, focusing on reprocessing waste is not going to be what they're focused on. And not only that, if you reprocess the waste, let's just talk about the amount of water it takes, and then you produce more waste reprocessing.
Environmentally a hazard.
And then more importantly, you're producing weapons-grade plutonium from the reprocessed waste. So reprocessing makes sense if it's done at the site for plants that are going to use it. We don't have any of such plants in this country, so I just think it's a silly idea.
Yeah, the least amount of moving around, the better. People talk oftentimes, I mean, the economy seems to be doing okay for a lot of people. But there's a lot of people it's not doing okay, and Amazon just raised their minimum wage to $15. I mean, so somebody works 40 hours a week. What's that? That's $600 a week less taxes. So you walk home with maybe $25,000 a year. Still not enough to support a family of four. What's your opinion about the minimum
wage?
Yeah.
Listen, increasing the minimum wage is an anti-poverty policy, and it's certainly something we need to do. And I am in support of increasing the minimum wage. I think it should go to $15 an hour. I want to see it done in a step process. I also want to look at the impact on small businesses to make sure we're not pricing small businesses out of their business. And so we need to look at how we handle that, whether it's with tax credits or things to offset the stress it will put on small businesses. But I deal with so many students whose parents are trying to get by working 3 and 4 jobs. If we want to improve our community, we have to increase the wage and reduce poverty in our community. I mean, I just drove down 4 Master Lane. The homeless problem in our city, I think, is growing. Affordable housing, we just saw yesterday the housing prices in Nevada are the highest they've been in 11 years. People are being priced out of the housing market. We need to focus on affordable housing and making sure that our families are able to exist in a safe environment, in a secure environment. Students are able to go to school with their basic needs being met.
Yeah, and you mentioned the homeless problem. I know you've worked volunteering in that area. But I can recall, and I don't remember if it was Governor Miller or Governor Gwynn at the time, we had a budget crisis and the state budget changed and they took out money for mental health. So there are a lot of people who had mental health issues, but they were able to get their prescriptions filled and have jobs. They did away with the money to fill the prescriptions, and now people ended up out on the street. Right? So, getting the medications back and the services back will not only take them off the street, but actually they'll be able to work.
Absolutely. Mental health services and Nevada are vastly underrepresented, and people have so much trouble accessing them. And one of the things I want to focus on in Congress is how we're increasing funding that we're bringing back to Nevada for basic services like this. We only have one federally funded healthcare center here in Southern Nevada. We need to increase that. For every dollar Nevadans send to Washington, D.C., we only get 66 cents back. And looking at vital services like mental health, what we're doing to support our education system and infrastructure is incredibly important. It's something I want to be focused on.
I mean, you talk about health care. I mean, look, how people are not up in arms in this election about medical care is beyond me. I mean, you hear on the news talking about the economy. Well, the economy seems to be much healthier than medical care. And here you have, one party essentially trying to get rid of pre-existing conditions. I had a daughter that was terminally ill. You have family members also that have pre-existing conditions. We all have somebody in our family or know somebody that or us.
Right.
I mean, you get old enough, you're going to have pre-existing
right,
conditions, right? I mean, it doesn't even make sense that insurance companies are allowed to exempt pre-existing conditions. It's the only reason you need insurance.
Right. Listen, I mean, the Affordable Care Act, first of all, if someone's sick, they should be able to see a doctor. And that means they should be able to have insurance that they can afford. That's a basic fact that should be available to everyone in the United States of America. The Affordable Care Act, to me, was a starting point, not an ending point, and we need to focus on fixing the parts of the Affordable Care Act that aren't working. But more importantly, in Nevada, over 300,000 people now have insurance that didn't have insurance before. This idea of repealing the Affordable Care Act with no solution, no plan B, and then getting rid of protections for people with pre-existing conditions. Danny Tarkanian thinks we should just open it up to the private market again. I know what happened when the private market controlled our health care options. I mean, my father was laid off. My parents in their 60s both had high blood pressure, weren't able to afford health care. My mother suffered a heart attack. She went into the hospital, came out, her bill was $80,000. It was the price of her home. They almost lost their home because of their health care bill. We went in, sat down with the hospital, discovered that an insurance company would pay $20,000 for that same bill. And, so that's a problem with the private market taking control of our health care options again, is we will, by default, push people out of the market and push people off insurance, and I think that's dangerous.
Susie, if you get elected to Congress, what committees would you like to serve on?
First and foremost, obviously, education and workforce is a big issue for me, and I think for the state. If we as a state want to diversify our economy, we have got to focus on our education system, both K-12 and higher education. And we have so many options and so many opportunities, whether it's in renewable energy, cybersecurity, drone technology, advanced manufacturing, bringing dollars to support our higher education system and get our workforce trained for those jobs of tomorrow, I think is incredibly important. So that would be one of my first choices. And also energy and commerce would be another one. And Jackie Rosen now sits on military services, which is incredibly important to our state. So those are sort of options that I'm looking at.
And this committees that you mentioned are vitally important in Nevada.
Oh, absolutely.
Particularly the energy and the education.
Yes.
We need them both, big time. Infrastructure. You talk a lot about fixing some of the existing infrastructure and building new infrastructure. It costs money, though.
Right.
Where does the money come from?
Listen, I mean, Nevada, we as a state depend on moving people in and out and around our city. The report from the UN coming out that climate change is not only, whatever's going on is accelerating, and it's not an issue that is going to be for our next generation. It's really something that you and I are feeling.
Right now, right?
Right.
I mean, here we are, is Florida. Okay,
right.
This is the third major hurricane in Florida. It's amazing. If you live in Florida, you got to believe in climate control, right? But a lot of people don't.
I know. Well, if you live anywhere, if you live in California and deal with the fires, if you live in the breadbasket and you're seeing your crop yield decrease, I mean, it's affecting every part of our economy, and it's real and now, and we need to focus on it. And to me, infrastructure needs to be focused on mass transportation, clean transportation, and that's something that I know is a top priority for the RTC here, something I want to assist on. With respect to where the money is going to come from, let's talk about the Republican tax bill that just got passed, where 80% of the tax benefit went to the top 20% income workers here in Nevada alone. They left cash. You know, we heard a lot of talk about closing corporate loopholes, dealing with offshore cash. Guess what didn't really get dealt with in this bill? Those are issues where, you know, I believe in tax cuts. I believe in middle-class tax cuts. I just think this bill was very lopsided in favor of special interest corporations and the wealthiest Americans.
You think people are energized this cycle, this election cycle, as being a non-presidential year?
Absolutely. I think that people, first of all, are frustrated with the gridlock in Washington and the divisiveness in this country. And I think that people want to see us start to work together to really produce solutions. And we're not seeing much of that lately. And also, we need to have a check and balance. I mean, the executive branch of government is yielding a lot of power right now, and we need to have a Congress that's going to actually do its duties and be a check and balance, which we're not seeing out of the Republican leadership right now.
It's the way this country was set up.
Right.
Checks and balances. I learned that in second grade. We have a judiciary, an executive branch, and a legislative branch, and there's one check on the other, and it doesn't seem to be happening right now.
Right.
All right. Well, good luck to you.
Well,
Susie
thank
Lee,
you. Thanks for having me, Ed.
Congressional candidate. And we'll be right back with County Commissioner Jim Gibson.
When sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.
I'm back with County Commissioner Jim Gibson, and former mayor of Henderson, and now county commissioner, got appointed and running for re-election. And I was thinking, I could remember, I wanted to ask you this question about Henderson. When I first moved here in the 70s, there was a time period where you could drive down Boulder Highway with no speed limit. Do you remember that?
I do.
And then they had the Arab oil embargo, and you had this national 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, and we had a speed limit. But now it was an unbelievable thing to me to be able to drive down. You could drive down 100 miles an hour down Boulder Highway in those days, right? It's changed a lot.
It really has. In fact, in those years, the population was probably 20,000 or fewer. The development had not even come on to anyone's horizon. It was just still something that would be conceived well later than that. And the changes in Henderson have been so dramatic. And Henderson has shaped itself. I mean, the reputation of the city back in those days was, the yellow cloud from the industrial complex.
That's right. I forgot about that.
The odors associated with that. And, they called us Hooterville and other things. And I mean, it's been really fun to see the progression that has been made over time, and it continues.
Were you born in Henderson?
No, I was born in Las Vegas.
But you were born in Southern Nevada.
Right. When Dad went to the military academy, when he finished his commitment, we came back, and he was hired as an engineer at the BMI complex. So we lived in Henderson.
And you went to school?
Basic high school. I graduated,
Yeah.
And it's been, it was a wonderful, fun time back then. I mean, we had wonderful teachers.
Small town.
Everything worked. It was just an incredible experience. And it kind of cemented my loyalty to the city. And it's been fun to live there ever since. And I've lived in Henderson since I got out of law school, came back, and that's where I've lived. Raised our family there. And all of our kids live in Henderson, too.
So when you look forward on how you'd like to see Henderson be 5-10 years from now, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that there is some infill development that the city is hoping for, and that I hope for, and that is, if if you go to the east side of the city, so you get to Boulder Highway, some of the older parts of the city, what we've traditionally called the downtown area, and then to the east, there is a lot of room for improvement there. The city has been doing some infrastructure work there. It's improved things, but we've got to see that happen. I think they're dedicated and committed to making that happen. But at the same time, the West Henderson plan with an entertainment district or recreation district that is developing now with the Raiders facilities and other things that are coming forward, I think that's going to be an exciting, energetic place. I think that there are a whole lot of really incredible things that some of us know about, and there are a lot that only the city officials know about that are on the way. And it's going to be exciting to see that. But we've got to, anytime you age, you've got to make sure you pay attention to the older part. And there probably were quite a number of years where the older part of the city just got older. We began to work on that during my terms. They're continuing to do that, and that'll continue to take a lot of resources, a lot of commitment.
And we're getting a new Costco there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Let's talk about the important things. You got appointed to the county commission, and you have county commissioners that by and large seem to get along with each other. I mean, there's some issues, I guess, with Steve Sisolak running against Chris G in a primary, and there may be some tension there. But by and large, county commission has gotten along, at least publicly, pretty well with each other compared to what you look at in Washington.
That's right.
This election, we have Chris G is term limited out.
Susan Brager.
Susan Brager, thank you, is term limited out. Steve Sisolak, if he wins the governorship, he'll vacate his seat. And the whole complexion of the county commission would change. So how do you feel about what it is now, and what are you looking forward to how it may be?
Well, you're right in your observation about how things have been working together, how we've all been working together despite the fact that Chris and Steve were running against each other. Hats off to them. They were both very professional about it. It did not impair, it didn't spill over at all. Frankly, it didn't spill over onto the 6th floor of the building where our offices are. And they deserve the credit for that. A lot of what happens, and a lot of the reason we work so well together, is that there is a lot of institutional history that resides in the minds and the experience of the people on the board. Not in my mind so much, because my experience with the county was from a distance. And I'm trying to learn all of that, and it's been an interesting learning curve. But as we get new people, we really need to mine from them, from their own experience, the ideas they may have that would help us change the way we go forward. All of that will be exciting. At the same time, we need to really focus on respectfully working with one another and really understanding each other as best we can. I think that the candidates that I see will fit nicely on the board. I think we'll not have any difficulty at all in making that transition.
Yeah, one of the differences I notice is that when you're in Congress, you hardly see people of the other party or other Congress people there. When you're in the county commission, you mentioned the 6th floor, everybody's office is within feet of each other, right? You see each other coming and going, in and out for lunch, up and down for the commission hearings, and then, around the community. It's a whole different, connection that you have with your fellow commissioners.
The opportunity for real social interchange and intersection in Washington has changed over the years because of the way they scheduled themselves. They schedule committee hearings and schedule votes in a way that enable them to leave Washington. So many of them actually still live in their districts. They just bunk, in Washington, D.C. Their families don't accompany them any longer. They used to. And the social exchange might have happened over the weekends. It doesn't happen that much anymore. We have the opportunity to see each other every day. Now we have the open meeting law, so it's not like we can talk about issues all of the time, but we can have enough conversation with one another on a one-on-one basis that we understand where we come from. And it's really important when you're working with people in a political environment that you kind of get where they've been and what notions are important to them.
Right. Big issue I hear about in the county right now is traffic. And concern about the, as welcoming as we all look forward to the stadium being built, we're all wondering how we're going to get back and forth to the game, and if we have to travel down to 15, how long that was going to take. I know, you're busy working on those kind of issues. You're going to say something to make me feel better.
Well, we're searching very hard for solutions that'll work out there. We've got something that isn't on the Strip and maybe not a solution per se to the issue you mentioned is the Maryland Parkway, rapid transit district that we're creating. We're going to have whatever kind of transit system we can afford to build there. We hope that we can get more people on the system. That'll be kind of a demonstration project for us. But ultimately what we've got to do is address the transporting of 100,000 or so people who work on the Las Vegas Strip in and out of the Strip every day. And we've got to figure that out. That will help relieve everything around the stadium and in other places. There are other improvements to the freeway we can do, but we've run that out just about. I mean, there's not a lot we can do to the I-15. There are other arterials that probably are going to have to develop some. The parking situation over at the stadium is something that needs to be worked out, but I'm not so sure that I think putting 12,000 cars on a single lot is a really good solution. You'd probably have to start coming in on Thursday for a Sunday game. That's really tough. So I think that we're going to learn from some of the people we haven't looked at in the past. We've thought of ourselves as being inventive and creative and innovative, but some of the big cities have figured out how to solve problems like the ones we're just about to walk into. We already have so much congestion on the roadway. And we've got to do more when it comes to transporting more people in a single vehicle. So that is something that we're working on very hard. RTC, of course, is kind of primarily charged with doing that. I served on RTC while I was mayor, and maybe in the future I'll be able to work over there again. But I think that you're right. That may be the most daunting thing we face right now.
You talk about all the traffic on the Strip, all the employees and getting them, in and out of work. You know how you tell a local in Las Vegas? It's the person that knows the back way into every hotel on the Strip.
That's right.
Because in every hotel, there is an alternative route other than Las Vegas Boulevard to get in and out, right? And gosh, I've known you for over 40 years, so I guess you know all those back roads too.
I do. I really never drive the Las Vegas Strip unless I must.
All right, thank you so much. Jim Gibson, County Commissioner, running for re-election. Get out there and vote.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Good thing you have insurance. The lady in front of you just called that Bernstein.
Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.